Hi, and welcome back to the Red Zone Warriors Fantasy Football Show. I am Rob the Commish Smith, here as always with my partner in crime, Jay Cushman Corsel. How's it going today, buddy?
Pretty good. How you doing?
The listeners who have not done anything to me at all.
Oh, you're just bitter from the ass whooping you took last week. I understand.
You to know that the Jags do not expect Cecil Shorts.
All right, everybody, don't forget to tweet us all your fantasy football questions at Red Zone Warriors. All right, Jay, so let's get right to it. What is going on around the NFL that me and the listeners need to know about?
Disappointing, Cecil. Disappointing. Jacksonville doesn't expect to have him available Sunday against Pittsburgh. Coach Gus Bradley all but ruled Shorts out Monday, a day after the 4-year pro tweaked a muscle near his left hamstring. Too bad. Too bad. Now here's some good news. Good news. Matthew Stafford is okay after getting dinged up. It's because Matt Stafford has proven more than once that he's tough. So as long as it's not anything serious, no sprains or anything like that, or shoulder separations, Stafford will be on the field. Michael James has signed with Miami. We actually saw this coming, 2 weeks ago, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's adding some depth behind Lamar Miller. Moreno's hurt, and Daniel Thomas is also hurt. So Lamar Miller in Miami. Arian Foster remains day-to-day with a hamstring. He acknowledged post-game that he wasn't 100% during the game, during the Texans' 23-17 home victory against the Bills. The coach, Bill O'Brien, said Monday the team's attack must return to form with daily improvements peaking Sunday against the Cowboys.
Yeah, we try to sway people against Foster this season. I hope they listen. I don't own him in a single league.
Yeah, no, he was just a bit scary. Guy that gets that many carries, and we've already seen him carted off a few times in the past. We know that it's risk. That's why it's called gambling. The Vikings hopeful for an earlier Kyle Rudolph return. I bet you like to hear that. The Minnesota Vikings are still hopeful tight end Kyle Rudolph, who had a sports hernia surgery last Tuesday, will be back on the field in fewer than 8 weeks. The time Rudolph would have had to miss if the Vikings had put him on the injured reserve. So he may be back. You heard anything? It's going to be sooner than that? 6 weeks?
Yeah, they're hoping for 6, but jury's still out.
Yeah, all right. The Vikes do not see running back Jerick McKinnon as an every down player right now. Yep. Which is why I'm dropping him. I already have, actually. The Vikings rookie running back. Yeah, look, he's had he had his breakout game this week. Breakout game. He hasn't been that impressive. I think he's more of a change of pace guy, and Zimmer thinks the same thing. They said that we'll worry about that next year and hope that we can continue to grow in his role, but don't think he's going to be an every down player right now. Bummer. I was kind of hoping that he would be the one that got that instead of Asiata. Damn. All right, Kyle Orton will start for the Bills. Yep, that's right, EJ Manuel. He's done.
Done.
Go sit down, son. All right, and by the way, he's getting his first start against the Lions, so I hope that he gets sacked 30 times and intercepted 15 times. Because that's what I want to happen. Fuck the Bills this week. This week is fuck the Bills week. All right. Carson Palmer's status is still up in the air. Come the fuck on. Really? Come the fuck on. Carson, either retire or get on the fucking field.
Jay, he's got a case of old man shoulder.
Yeah, I do too, but you know what I'm not doing? Playing in the NFL. So, come on, fucker.
So there's that, Carson Palmer.
Carson Palmer, you bastard. I need you. Michael Floyd needs you. Shit. All right. Seahawks tight end Zach Miller is going to miss extended time. So, Zach Miller owners, darn, I guess, if there is any of you. He had some kind of ankle procedure, apparently. Teddy Bridgewater's MRI is negative, and he could play Thursday. The guy had a great start this week. They had a really nice win. He threw for 317 yards and rushed for a touchdown, and the running backs from Minnesota ran all the fuck over the Falcons, like ruckshot, basically. It was bad. Vikings coach Mike Zimmer addressed reporters about Bridgewater's MRI and said that there is a chance that he could be ready for Thursday night's game at Green Bay. Honestly, I don't care which one of those teams wins, although I prefer Green Bay to just get another loss, be pushed further down. Please. So,
yeah, I think that's more important for the Greg Jennings and Cordell Patterson owners out there. Teddy Bridgewater was limited in practice today. He's got to play tomorrow. It's not looking great. It's looking like sadly a Christian Ponder day. So just be careful there. Be careful.
Yeah, that is disheartening news. Definitely. Some more disheartening news is Joique Bell was concussed in the Lions' win. The Lions running back Joique Bell is believed to have suffered a concussion at the end of the third quarter. He's evaluated for a head injury, and the team officials prohibited him from speaking to the media after the game. That's a league-wide policy for concussed players, by the way. He's not going to talk about injuries. In particular, Coach Caldwell said, I'll leave that up to our injury report. You can take a look at that when it comes out. Fuck you, Jim. Tell us what's going on. So, Reggie Bush owners, start touching yourselves, because that could be good for you. Then it could be bad, because if he gets too many carries, we all know that Reggie might go and get hurt. So, good luck with that, boys. I don't have either of them, so have fun. Rob, that's it.
Yeah, and I will say Joique Bell did not practice at all on Wednesday, so again, it's not looking ideal for him to start this week. So, all right, so we are going to move on as we do and quickly go across the league, touch on, I should say, all the matchups, all the important fantasy impacts, both good and bad, on these particular matchups of last week to kind of help forecast the future moving forward. So Jay, you're going to start us out this week with last Thursday night's game, which was a surprising on some level, just ass-kicking of the Redskins by, well, the New York Giants.
Yes, and surprisingly, Eli Manning only threw one interception. That's right, folks, just one. And he threw 4 touchdowns, 300 yards. Pretty good day for Eli, which, wow, where'd that come from? Rushing was led by Andre Williams, 15 carries, 66 yards, and a touchdown. Rashad Jennings, 13 carries for 55 yards, and 1 catch for -3 yards. No touchdowns. He did also, if I'm not mistaken, drop a touchdown catch. It would have been definitely a touchdown. I saw it.
Indeed, he did.
God damn. Rashad, don't do that again. Do not do that. Victor Cruz, 6 catches for 108 yards, no touchdowns. And then we come to the man, the myth, the legend, the giant, Larry Donnell. Larry Donnell, everybody. 7 catches for 54 yards and 3 touchdowns. Yes, 3.
Jay, Larry Donnell is the self-proclaimed black unicorn. That's what he calls himself. Not sure why, but he does.
Dude, hey, look, man. He can call himself whatever he wants. He catches 3 touchdowns a week. I wish he was on my team. All right, so moving on to the Redskins side of the ball. This is not, honestly, I honestly thought this is what I would be reading out for Eli Manning and not Kirk Cousins. 19 of 33, 257 yards, 1 touchdown, and 4 interceptions. Yes, Kirk Cousins, you managed to do so bad. You threw as many interceptions as Eli Manning threw touchdowns in this game, and he threw a lot of touchdowns. Not good, man. Not good. Alfred Morris, 12 carries for 63 yards and a touchdown. In receiving for the Redskins, Halou, 5 catches for 78 yards. He's starting to receive a little more attention, I think, coming out of the backfield, catching the ball. He's starting to maybe fit into a low-end flex PPR role there. Now, Niles Paul, I believe, was injured in this game. Rob, do you know anything about that?
He was definitely injured. I can't remember what injury it was, but he's definitely knocked out of the game.
Yeah, I think it was he was the one that was hit sandwiched, wasn't he?
Oh, the concussion. Yeah, I think that's right.
That looks brutal. The whole hands in the air thing, and not good, man. So, speedy recovery, man. I hope you're all right. Pierre Garçon, another disappointing day, man. What the fuck are we supposed to do with Pierre Garçon? 2 catches, 28 yards. Come on, man. I mean, Alfred Morris caught more fucking balls than you. For only one. God damn it, Pierre. God damn it. Deshaun Jackson was held to only 1 catch for 9 yards. So that's all I've got for the Giants Redskins. It was a disappointing game for me all around, except for Victor Cruz.
Yeah, well, I think one of the funniest parts of this game was actually in the post game when Eli Manning was doing an interview with the Thursday night crew, which included Deion Sanders, and he looked at Deion and said, "You know, Deion, you can't teach speed." And he was referring to his 5-yard rushing TD, which might have been the first of Eli's career because he's actually slower than his brother, which is surprising. But it is what it is. All right, so we're going to move forward to the Green Bay Packers versus Jay's Chicago Bears.
Fuck the Bears.
And, wow, this was a rout, ladies and gentlemen. Expected this to be a little bit more competitive, but it was not. The Packers won this one 38-17. And they did this, well, not on the legs of Eddie Lacy yet again, but rather on the arm of Aaron Rodgers, future Hall of Famer.
Surprise.
Very efficient day here for Mr. Rodgers, 22 for 28 for 302 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions, because that's what stud quarterbacks do. Eddie Lacy did do a little better this week, however, after starting with 3 just horrific top 5 rushing defense matchups. They got the Bears. Was expecting a little better, however, because he was 17 for 48, which was only 2.8 yards a carry. Did get into the end zone. Did have a second touchdown call back. Could have had a lot better numbers here. So it was better, but it wasn't ideal. Kind of expecting James Starks to get a little bit more of a role here, because he basically didn't even get in the game for some reason last week when he was in a lot the previous 3 weeks. So not saying full-blown committee by any means, but I think he's going to get more carries moving forward. So from a receiving perspective, my guy, my fantasy man crush, Jordy Nelson, got it done yet again to the tune of 10 catches on 12 targets, because the man's efficient, for 108 yards and 2 scores. Man, that's the second 30-point scoring week in 4 weeks in a PPR for Jordy Nelson. Randall Cobb also did well for his owners with 7 catches for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns of his own. So you definitely wanted a part of this Green Bay passing game in this game here versus the lowly Bears. On the other side of the ball, you had Jay Cutler. Kind of an up and down game for Jay. He had 22 for 34 for 256 yards, 2 scores, 2 interceptions here. Matt Forte came out after a disappointing week last week, did well in this one, 23 carries for 122 yards. Did not get into the end zone, however, but still put up a pretty good number. Also caught 5 balls like he does for 49 yards. However, the story of the Chicago Bears clearly has been Martellus Bennett, the tight end here. He's outperforming a gimpy Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey. He had 9 catches on 11 targets for 134 yards in this one. So he's getting it done week after week, and he's looking like a top 5 tight end for sure. And that is the Packers and the Bears, Jay.
All right. Well, thank you, Matt Forte. I appreciate it very much. And Jordy Nelson, I'm conflicted this week. That's what I hate about playing more than one league. Not great. Anyway, moving on to Buffalo and Houston. And this one was a pretty close game. Texans squeaked her out 23-17. We'll start on the Buffalo side of the ball here with the replaced E.J. Manuel, 21 of 44, 225 yards, 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. Yeah, he hasn't looked great, and he won't be looking great because he'll be looking on from the bench. C.J. Spiller had 15 carries for 60 yards. Fred Jackson, 7 for 33. And E.J. Manuel, who's supposed to be able to run with the ball, 1 for 3 yards. So not a great day on the ground, all in all, for the Bills. Receiving-wise, Spiller added 3 catches for 24 yards to his ground game. And Fred Jackson, still doing it, though, for fantasy owners with 6 catches for 52 yards here in a PPR league. Mike Williams led the team with yards here, 2 receptions for 84 yards and a touchdown. And Sammy Watkins, 4 for 30 and a touchdown. Ryan Fitzpatrick on the other side of the ball. Not a great day for him either. 268 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. He did have 6 carries for 14 yards. Woo! Alfred Blue, 9 carries for 9 yards. Wow. Foster, 8 carries for 6 yards. On the receiving side here, Andre Johnson, 6 catches for 71 yards. And, hey, guess what, folks? Still no touchdown. DeAndre Hopkins, 5 catches for 64 yards and a touchdown. And Foster had 7 catches for 55 yards. That's about it as far as anything fantasy relevant going on in the Houston-Buffalo game. Rob?
Yeah, and I will mention, too, going back real quick to the Packers-Bears game, I heard a neat little nugget here, stat, that that game was only the second game in NFL history that did not have a punt throughout the entire game.
I did hear that. It's pretty crazy.
That's, yeah, I didn't even realize that, of course, when the game was going on. But, yeah, so there you go. You heard it here, well, second. All right, so we're going to move on to the Tennessee Titans getting their ass handed to them by the Indianapolis Colts to the tune of 41-17. Well, that's because they have Andrew Luck, and, well, Tennessee, they have Charlie Whitehurst. So, Andrew Luck was 29 for 41 in this one for, 393 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 pick. The guy's a beast. He is probably, he's the front runner for ending up as the #1 quarterback in fantasy at this point, hands down. So we'll see if that continues, but it's looking pretty good right now. Let's see, Trent Richardson got the bulk of the carries in this one, 20 carries for 47 yards to the tune of a whopping 2.4 yards a carry, because that's what T-Rich does. He runs into the lineman in front of him. He did happen to stumble into the end zone, so salvaged his fantasy day there for any schmuck that actually wanted to start this guy. Ahmad Bradshaw, on the other hand, went 9 for 32 for over a full yard per carry more. Again, Pep, you need to just give Bradshaw the ball, please.
More.
Yes. From a receiving perspective in this one, Reggie Wayne was 7 for 119 in the score. He crushed it after a pretty slow week from him last week. T.Y. Hilton was again the most targeted receiver in this backfield here for the Colts, but he caught 6 for 105, no scores. But he's more of a flex play nowadays. We'll see if that gets any better. On the other side of the ball, you had, again, the aforementioned Charlie Whitehurst. He was a whopping 12 for 23 for 177 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He also, not necessarily shockingly, but unfortunate for him and his team, carried the ball more and got the most yards from a rushing perspective for the Titans for 5 carries for 40 yards. So if only Jay, he couldn't throw it to himself and catch it, because that's what he needed to do in this one. Wasn't able to get that part done, thus they got their ass handed to them again, to the tune of 41-17.
Yeah, they suck. What can you say? Moving on to another ass whooping, which, what the fuck's going on with Carolina's defense, man? They were supposed to be a tough-ass unit. 2 weeks in a row that they've gotten beat up.
Well, yeah, pretty sure they got out-toughed by Steve Smith Sr.
That's exactly what fucking happened. So Panthers lost to the Ravens 38-10. Cam Newton, 14 of 25, 197 yards and a touchdown. He added 7 yards on the ground and 2 carries. D'Angelo Williams had 11 carries for 34 yards, and a guy named Darren Reeves had 12 carries for 26 yards. He also had 3 catches for 11 yards. Jericho Crotchery.
He prefers the ladies call him Crotchery.
Crotchery. That's awesome. He had 5 catches for 80 yards, and Mr. Calvin Benjamin, 5 catches, 76 yards, and a touchdown. Greg Olsen, disappointing day for Greg Olsen here. 2 catches, 30 yards, no touchdown. Of course, when the team only scores 10 points, that's kind of what happens. So, moving on to the Baltimore side of the ball, Joe Flacco. You know, I wish he was a better quarterback because I like his name. Joe Flacco. 22 of 31, 327 yards, 3 touchdowns. Pretty good week, Joe Flacco. Justin Forsett, 14 carries, 66 yards. He also added 3 catches for 31 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Taliaferro Lorenzo, 15 carries for 58 yards and a touchdown. He did not have any catches because all of the fucking catches this week went to, Rob mentioned, Steve Smith Sr. 7 catches, 139 yards, 2 touchdowns on 10 targets. Yes, Torrey Smith, 2 catches for 53 yards on 3 targets and a touchdown. Yeah, he sucks. Owen Daniels, 4 catches for 43 yards. So, yeah. Steve Smith. Wow. Who saw that? I mean, who saw that old man doing all of that?
Yeah, not this guy.
No.
Not this guy. All right, so let's move over to another barn burner here, and that would have been the Tampa Bay Buccaneers narrowly squeaking one out over the Pittsburgh Steelers with a score of 27-24. You know, Mike Glennon took over in this one. I think he's just frankly a better quarterback. He showed a lot of heart last year, played well, really thought he was going to get this job moving into the season. And they bring in the old veteran from Chicago and took it over from him. Yeah. But Mr. Glennon here, as I like to refer to him as, went 21 for 42 for 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick here on this one. Rushing perspective, you know, Doug Martin was coming into this game, was kind of gimpy, got active, played a big role here, got the vast majority of the carries, got 14 carries for 40 yards, just under 3 yards a carry and a score. Bobby Rainey was really nowhere to be seen in this one, only 4 carries for 2 yards, and that's about it there. So it was definitely the Doug Martin show, but only running for 40 yards at less than 3 yards a carry isn't exactly a huge endorsement. Receiving-wise, Mike Evans got hurt in this one. He will very likely miss some games here moving forward. He had 4 catches for 65 yards and a score, so at least he didn't go out in the first quarter. He helped his owners out here and got him through this game. Vincent Jackson was targeted 10 times, but only had 3 catches, 32 yards, and he ended up getting a score here towards the end. Actually, the big story here and the big waiver wire pickup from Tampa Bay's receiving core is Louis Murphy. He got some extra time in there when Mike Evans went down. He was actually targeted the most on this team, 11 targets, caught 6 of them for 99 yards. He's somebody to look at, especially if Mike Evans is going to miss some significant time moving forward. So on the Pittsburgh side of the ball, Big Ben Roethlisberger was 29 for 40 for 314 yards and 3 touchdowns. Man, he's really getting it done. He's outperforming what he's done the last handful of years for fantasy up through week 4 for sure.
Well, with a receiver like Antonio Brown, how can he not be performing that?
Yeah, and Antonio Brown actually threw a completion in this one. He was 1 for 1 for 17 yards. The guy's getting it done in every capacity here, clearly. Le'Veon Bell, still the man, always will be the man. He got 19 carries for 63 yards, no score on this one. LeGarrette Blount only scored 0 touchdowns with 4 carries for 25 yards. So it's definitely the Le'Veon Bell show here in Pittsburgh. Antonio Brown, targeted 11 times, caught 7 for 131 and 2 touchdowns. The guy is the #1 wide receiver in fantasy, both standard and PPR at this point. So he got it done yet again, week after week. Heath Miller was also targeted 11 times, had 10 catches for 85 yards and a score. So if for some reason, given the bye week issues of week 4, you plugged in Heath Miller, man, he really helped you out on this one. So we'll have to keep an eye on him to see if he can continue some level of productivity even close to this. Moving forward, Jay.
Yes. Thank you again, Antonio Brown. I have a feeling I'm going to be saying that a lot this season. I hope so. So moving on to the game of the week. The Mighty Lions giving it to the New York Jets with a score of 4-17. And Matthew Stafford did shine in this one. 24-34 for 293 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also added 6 carries for 8 yards and a pretty awesome, if I might say, touchdown.
Yes, he did.
Sliding through the end zone on his back, arms raised in victory. It was beautiful.
It was his victory, Jay. It was my victory. It was a good day.
Fuck you, man. Fuck you. Don't you take this from me. Don't you take this from me. I will hurt you. I will hurt you. Anyway, moving on. Reggie Bush, 12 carries for 46 yards. Joique Bell, 8 for 32. And as we said earlier, Joique Bell did suffer a concussion in this game, so you got to monitor that definitely. On the receiving side of the ball, well, we're actually going to talk about one of the non-performers in this game, and this is tragic that we're even saying this. Calvin Johnson, 2 catches for 12 yards on 2 targets. So as good of a game as you had, Matthew Stafford, the fuck, man. 2 targets for Calvin? 2?
Yeah, Jay, I'll mention on this one that they admitted after the game that he was literally put in there as a decoy. But I think the good thing here, and as you would clearly know this as a Lions fan, is that I think this is great for him to get targeted so little and for them to perform so well offensively. They have this reputation of just never having a wide receiver 2 worth a damn, and Stafford's numbers being garbage when Calvin either doesn't play or is gimpy like he was in this one. So I see this as just a huge, huge upside and swing for the momentum of the Lions here.
Yeah, that is the other side of it. But still, if he's hurt, man, just put him on the sideline. I'd rather see him there, to be honest with you. I don't want to see him get hurt worse and then not. So, but speaking of other targets and wide receiver 2 and the Lions not having one, they do now. Name is Golden Tate. 8 catches, 116 yards, on 10 targets. Jeremy Ross, 2 catches for 65 yards and a touchdown. And Eric Ebron showed his face. 3 catches, 35 yards, and a touchdown. All right. And ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Broyles actually had a catch in this game. And he's not hurt. 1 catch for 21 yards. Reggie Bush added 4 for 19. Pettigrew actually held onto the ball a couple times, caught both of his targets for 19 yards. Moving on to the other side of the ball, the lowly Jets. And anybody that's ever listened to this show in the past has heard me show my great disdain for the New York Jets. I do not like them. They suck. Geno Smith, who apparently cussed at a fan on the way out of the stadium, or on the way off the field rather, was 17 of 33 for 209 yards and a touchdown and 1 interception, and 4 carries for 4 yards. Chris Ivory, one of my pickups, 17 carries, 84 yards. He added 2 catches for 16 yards in this one. Chris Johnson had 6 carries for 44 yards and a touchdown. Receiving side of the ball, Chris Johnson also had 2 catches for 17 yards. Greg Salas, 2 catches for 60 yards. Jace Amaro, 5 catches for 58 yards. And Eric Decker, 4 for 48 and a touchdown. The Jets suck. The Jets suck. Eric Decker is at least giving you guys something, and Chris Ivory is doing a little something for people. Chris Johnson, though, man, I don't know. What do you think about Chris Johnson, Rob? He's kind of week to week, weird, not really reliable.
No, I think he's a poor man's Chris Ivory, honestly.
Amen to that, brother. Amen to that.
Yeah, Jay, we've already started hearing the chants from Michael Vick, just to give our listeners kind of a heads up. Michael Vick typically gets it done for fantasy if he's in there, and he will, frankly, be starting here for the Jets probably in the next couple weeks. Keep an eye out on that. I know Jay rode the Vic Stallion to a championship a few years back, picking him up off waivers. So we'll see if he can
do her.
Get that done again. All right, so we are going to move, Jay, to this next one here. We're going to go across the proverbial pond to Wembley Stadium in London, where, Jay, we try to give this new market the best we can. Clearly, when we send the NFL's best 2-2 Dolphins, now 2-2, we're 1-2, over, and the Raiders, who were 0-3, over across the pond to our Brits. Our friends, the Brits, our comrades, our allies, you're getting the best from us, clearly, here in this one. At least the Dolphins put up some offensive showings here for our friends to the tune of 38 points, and the routing of the Raiders, well, because the Raiders are right there with the Jets, and they both suck, so at least they didn't get the Raiders Jets. I guess there's that. Ryan Tannehill decided to play some football. Wow, who knew? They were talking last week that he was going to be put on the bench. Maybe that put a little fire under his ass on this one. He went 23 for 31, 278 yards, 2 scores and interceptions. Definitely did well for everybody who does not own him and for all the waiver wires out there in the world, because that's clearly where Tannehill was during this game here at Wembley. Lamar Miller, 12 carries for 64 yards and 2 scores. He just keeps getting it done there for Miami. Again, no Sean Moreno's due back probably 3 to 4 weeks. We just mentioned earlier they signed LaMichael James, and Daniel Thomas was just signed a couple weeks ago. But so we'll see when No-Shine gets back what this clusterfuck's going to look like moving forward. Receiving perspective, Brian Hartline was targeted the most here, 7 targets, 6 catches for 74 yards. He evidently likes Wembley, and that's about it. Mike Wallace kind of had a disappointing day, salvaged it with a touchdown, but only had 3 catches for 35 yards. On the pathetic other side of the ball, Derek Carr, of course, ended up getting hurt. He went 16 for 25 for 146, a score and an interception. Matt McGloin came in 12 for 19 for 130 yards, a score and 2 interceptions. So it's very much looking like Matt McGloin is going to be starting for the hapless, sadless, blah, 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 Oakland Raiders here this coming week. So start your defenses against the Oakland Raiders in Week 5. This was MJD's game back again, supposed to be healthier now, but you wouldn't know that considering he got 2 carries for 1 yard. Darren McFadden, 11 carries for 40 yards. So people, you just want nothing to do with this offense at all. The only guy you would even consider giving a whiff to would be James Jones, but he only had 6 for 83 in this one. So stay away, stay far, far away.
Yeah, the Raiders do suck. So moving on, we have Jacksonville, San Diego, where San Diego kicked the living shit out of the Jags, 33-14. On this one, Blake Bortles threw a couple more interceptions. Again, expect that from a rookie. He also had a touchdown and 253 yards passing. He added 5 carries for 24 yards. Toby Gerhart, hey, he actually scored a touchdown in this one. 10 carries for 32 yards. Still not looking too great on the yards per carry front. He also had 1 catch for 8 yards. Denard Robinson, 9 carries, 25 yards. They used him a little bit in this one, and I wish they'd use him a little more. You know, I think he'd be a fun guy to have on a fantasy team. He'd be a little bit like Cordell Patterson, I think, but he needs to tie his shoelaces up, I guess. He also had 3 catches for 7 yards. Leading the Jaguars in receiving, Clay Harbor, 8 catches for 69 yards. Hearns had 5 for 68, and Allen Robinson 5 for 38. Cecil Shorts is pretty much a no-show here, 2 catches for 25 yards. A lot of different guys getting the ball there. Not a real big fantasy option. On the other side of the ball, Phillip Rivers, 29 of 39, 377 yards and 3 touchdowns. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you get it done. The rushing, San Diego, Donald Brown, 10 for 19, man. Not great.
Man, he disappointed big time.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Now, Brandon Oliver had 9 for 23, and Rivers had 1 for 0. Keenan Allen, 10 catches, 135 yards, doing what Keenan Allen does. Eddie Royal, 5 for 105 and 2 touchdowns. Good job there, Mr. Royal. And Malcolm Floyd, 3 catches for 39 yards and a touchdown. Gates was again disappointing, 3 catches for 30 yards. So that's it for the San Diego-Jacksonville game.
Yeah, you know, Jay, I dare say that Cecil Shorts is the new Miles Austin when it comes to hamstring injuries.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be said. All right, so we're going to move on to the lowly Falcons playing the lowly Vikings, actually. The Vikings somewhat ran away with this one, 41-28 here. They did that on the back of rookie Teddy Bridgewater. It's not hyphenated, it's Bridgewater. He was 19 for 30, 317 yards. He had no touchdowns, but he had no interceptions, and he did have a rushing score, ran 5 for 27 yards. So he really gave this Viking offense some life. It was really needed when the likes of Matt Castle preceded him. He did tweak his ankle in this one, as we mentioned here at the beginning of the show. He's looking really sketchy to play on a short week playing this Thursday, so watch out for that. But moving forward, Bridgewater's clearly the guy here, and he might actually have some fantasy relevance as well moving forward. Matt Asiata got 20 carries for 78 yards, and this was the second game that he had 3 touchdowns. I mean, that 3 touchdowns 2 different weeks in the first 4 weeks is pretty fluky. Things got to really line up for that to happen. This guy's not a dynamic runner, but he is clearly getting it done and deserves to be in your lineup as a flex or RB2 for sure, especially last week when there were 6 teams on bye. But Jerick McKinnon, you know, he got 18 carries here. They damn well split the carries down the middle. Instead of running for 3.9 yards a carry, he ran for 7.5. He also had like a 56-yard run. He had a touchdown called back. So the guy played really well. So I'll be very interested to see this split moving forward. You know, the coaching staff, as we mentioned earlier in the show, you know, said that he's not necessarily a 3-down back yet, but at 7.5 yards a carry, you know, if he can learn pass blocking and so forth in the next few weeks, you know, he might take this over or at least keep his 50-50 share. So we'll just kind of have to see here. From a Vikings receiving perspective, man, Bridgewater has a connection with Jarius Wright, and the speculation here is that Bridgewater was always with the second, third team offense, and that's where Jarius Wright was playing most of the times. He built a little mojo here because neither one of these guys was on the first team when they were practicing and so forth. So it's the truth is in the numbers here. He was targeted 10 times. That's 6 more times than the second most receiver here this week. Caught 8 of those for 132 yards. He was really getting it done. He was doing bubble screens and different things and that you think Cordell Patterson should be doing. Greg Jennings targeted 4 times, 3 catches for 72 yards. Patterson only had 2 catches for 38 and really did nothing from a rushing perspective in this one for like the third straight week in a row. On the other side of the ball, Matt Ryan did well again, 25 for 41, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, put up some good numbers for you again this week. Receiving the ball, Julio Jones, 6 catches for 82 yards. What was interesting and odd, Roddy White in this one was targeted 14 times, only caught 4 of them. I didn't get to watch much of this game, so I didn't understand that's what was happening, but targeted 14 times, catching 4 of them, that's not great. So I'm not sure what the situation is there. Did happen to catch an easy score on this one, so saved his fantasy value for the day. Steven Jackson still getting the bulk of the carries when he's healthy, under 4 yards a carry, 13 carries for 49 yards. The interesting guy here is Antone Smith. It's really odd. This guy, I mean, points per carry has to lead the NFL, maybe not just this year, but the last maybe 5 years. Every time he touches the ball, he seems to take it to the house. 4 carries for 62 yards and a score. Freeman had just had 2 carries for 8 yards. It's very interesting cluster F of a backfield here in Atlanta. Another situation just to stay away from. Jay?
Yeah, I already got out of the stock options of the Atlanta Falcons backfield. Yeah. So moving on to a interesting game actually this week. San Francisco-Philly. This was an interesting one. San Francisco pulled it out, obviously 26-21. And so, Philly scored 21 points. You would think, maybe Nick Foles threw for a couple touchdowns or McCoy rushed for something. No, this is all defense, special teams. Usually we would not even be mentioning the defense or special teams, but we have to. I mean, they had a blocked punt return for a touchdown, a 53-yard interception return for a touchdown. Oh, and Darren Sproles? Yeah, Darren Sproles had an 82-yard punt return for a touchdown. So, offensively, really, Philadelphia was awful. Nick Foles disappointed. LaShawn McCoy just wasn't even in the building. Foles had 21 of 43, 195 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 picks. Terrible. McCoy, 10 carries, 17 yards, 1.7 yards per carry. Not good, man. Macklin, 4 catches for 57 yards. Riley Cooper. Oh, by the way, speaking of guys that were targeted a bunch, Macklin was targeted 15 times, had 4 catches. Wow. Riley Cooper, 6 catches for 54 yards. Ertz, 4 for 43. Like I said, not much going on here. Bad day for the Eagles, man, and fantasy owners of Eagles players. Other side of the ball, Kaepernick was 17 of 30 for 218 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. He added 7 carries for 58 yards on the ground. Frank Gore, 24 carries, 119 yards and a catch for 55 yards and a touchdown. Big day for Frank Gore. Big day. Big day for Frank Gore. Carlos Hyde also had 10 carries for 26 yards in this one. Anquan Bolden, 5 catches, 62 yards. Crabtree had 5 for 43. Stevie Johnson, 1 catch for 1 touchdown. And Brandon Lloyd had a couple more catches in this one, 2 for 28 yards. Add that to the Brandon Lloyd watch, Rob. Brandon Lloyd watch. So, but that's it. Yeah, big story in that one was obviously the Eagles' defense just trying to keep them in this one by scoring points for him. Man, what a bad day for Nick Foles owners, McCoy owners. Tell you what.
Yeah, I'm a Nick Foles owner in one of my leagues. It was frustrating. Yeah, he had a bad day. At the same time, he rarely ever had the ball. I mean, their time of possession, 17 minutes versus 42. I mean, when your defense is scoring, you're not on the field. So that I think better things for him are to come. I think that was kind of a weird anomaly of a game. At least I'm optimistic that that's the case. I did pick up Eli Manning in that league, however, because it did make me nervous. But, the whole offensive line, that's why McCoy's doing so bad. It's such a mismatch. It was weird because they had one of the best offensive lines, if not the best offensive line last year. But due to injuries and various things, it's all clustered up. And they are getting their one of their offensive linemen back this coming week who's been out on suspension. So hopefully that will help. But, you're kind of stuck with Foles and McCoy right now because they have no trade value given how poorly, especially McCoy has played over the last 2 or 3 weeks. So you just kind of have to grind this one out and hope for the best. So we're going to move on to the Sunday night game. And Jay, thought last week was an anomaly, but the Cowboys are 3-1.
I still don't believe you. Every time you say this, I'm sorry. I mean, I see it on ESPN. I just think it's all some big hoax. Look, Jerry Jones is a rich-ass motherfucker. I think he's paying some people off or something.
Something's going on. I don't know if I'm more shocked by that or the fact that the Saints not only lost to the Cowboys, but the Saints are 1-3. Man, Drew Brees with all those weapons on offense. I know their defense sucks, but geez. Anyway, 38-17, the Cowboys beat the Saints in this one. Tony Romo, well, he got his mojo back. He was 22 for 29 for 262 yards and 3 scores and no picks for Romo. Wow. That's like saying no picks for Eli. That's just
almost, yeah. Wow.
World turns upside down. Had a great game here. DeMarco Murray just keeps getting it done. The number 1 running back in fantasy, hands down. 24 carries for 149 yards and 2 scores. Man, I don't know if he nor any running back, for that matter, even bring Emmitt Smith back, can handle the workload that DeMarco has got through the first 4 games. And they're just running the crap out of the ball. So, man, might want to pick up Randall or somebody behind him. I just can't imagine him keeping up with these numbers. But you're going to ride this horse as long as you can here. Receiving-wise, Terrence Williams, there is a sighting. He was targeted the most times from a wide receiver perspective here in Dallas. 7 times, caught 6 of them for 77 yards and 2 scores. So I don't know if anyone would have had the kahunas to start Williams because he hasn't played that well to this point, but he did really well on this one. Jason Witten targeted 5 times, caught all 5 of them for 61 yards. Dez targeted 6 times, 3 catches, but he also had that score. It's kind of what he's been doing of late, salvaging his fantasy day with a touchdown. On the other side of the ball, Drew Brees, man, you guys just cannot play when you're not at home. And I would have said not in the dome, but you were in a dome. You were in Dallas playing on the turf like you do in New Orleans, and you still sucked. So, there must be some magic there in New Orleans with those fans or something, because they go on the road, they get crushed. He was 32 for 44, 340 yards, 2 scores, 1 interception. So he did okay from a fantasy perspective. Again, Kyrie Robinson gets the bulk of the carries, if you want to call it that. Only had 8 carries, but it was for 87 yards. He broke a big, 50-yard run towards the end of the game that really pumped up his numbers. No scores. Pierre Thomas, hello, calling Pierre Thomas. The guy's a no-show again. He had 2 carries for 8. Yeah, 2 carries for 8 yards and only 2 catches for 15 yards. In a game that they were behind, you would have thought Pierre Thomas would have been in the game more. He wasn't. Really don't understand that. Jimmy Graham targeted 10 times, caught 8 of them for 86 yards in a garbage time touchdown, but it still counts, ladies and gentlemen. Colston targeted 11 times, the most in this offense, but caught less than half at 5 for 50 yards, and that's it. So Cooks, targeted 6 times, 5 catches for 31 yards, didn't do great. Again, they cannot play when they're not home. It's weird to say that. I don't understand why. It's a perfect scenario where you have a potent offense that at least should be with a horrible defense. That's the ideal situation for fantasy. But for some reason, it's just really not working out on the Saints offense for whatever reason.
Yeah, not working out at all. Another offense that it's not working out at all for is the New England Patriots. Believe it or not, I believe that the Patriots are on the downswing.
They aren't what we thought they weren't, Jay.
Yeah, exactly. You want to crowd them? Fucking crowd them. They lost to the Chiefs 14-41.
Hey.
Ouch. Tom Brady looked like shite. 14-23, 159 yards, a touchdown and 2 picks. There was no running game to speak of. Ridley, 5 carries for 28 yards, and Vereen, 8 carries for 26. Receiving, not even that much better. I mean, Brandon LaFell had a great game. 6 carries, 119 yards, and a touchdown. Vereen, 5 catches for 41 yards. Gronkowski had a couple catches for 31 yards and a touchdown. Edelman was held to 4 catches for 23 yards. Ladies and gentlemen, somebody figured out how to stop Julian Edelman from catching 14 balls. And it showed in Tom Brady's numbers. Tom Brady also fumbled the ball twice, although he only did lose one. On the other side of the ball, as you can expect, there's probably going to be some numbers here, folks. Alex Smith, 20 of 26 for 248 yards and 3 touchdowns. He added 4 carries for 8 yards. Niall Davis, 16 carries for 107 yards. No touchdowns for Niall Davis. He did add 1 catch for 12 yards. Jamal Charles finally showed back up. 18 carries for 92 yards and a touchdown. Also caught the ball 3 times for 16 yards and, the other 2 of Alex Smith's passing touchdowns. Travis Kelce, 8 catches for 93 yards and a touchdown.
He has arrived, Jay. He has arrived.
He definitely has arrived. Dwayne Bowe is still where Dwayne Bowe always is, 5 catches for 81 yards. Actually, that's nowhere near where Dwayne Bowe always is. He usually has 2 catches for 4 yards. Donnie Avery, 2 catches for 46 yards. And that's about it. The Chiefs looking like they might be getting on a little bit of a good page here. Hopefully we can see more of this out of them in the future. I mean, honestly, this would have been one of those games, what was it, a couple of years ago where you were able to play Ben Tate and Arian Foster in the same lineup and score fantasy points. This is one of those situations, well, at least this week it could have been. We'll see going forward where you get good fantasy production out of both running backs on the team.
Yeah, and Jay, in this one we had a Jimmy Garoppolo sighting. Well, when Tom Brady gets benched in the 4th quarter because his quarterback rating was less than 60, that's what happens. Garoppolo, who might actually be better looking than Tom Brady, surprisingly.
Is that even possible?
He's a good-looking man, that guy. And I'm not saying he's going to steal his wife or anything, but they hired interesting quarterbacks for that.
I already did that, dude.
Yeah. Good luck. Giselle. All right, well, that is it for the kind of week 4 matchups, explaining to you kind of what happened from a fantasy perspective, some of the things to focus on moving forward. So we're going to move on to what we really need to do here, and that's talk about week 5 waiver wire pickups. So we're going to start, as we always do, Jay, with the quarterbacks, and a guy that, again, came off a really huge week. He actually looked good the last couple of weeks straight. A guy that we thought was just dying on the waiver wire has brought himself back a little bit.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm even saying this. If you need help at your quarterback position, go pick up Eli Manning.
Yeah, feels weird. It's like you're speaking another language.
Yeah. Okay, listen. The guy looked like shit in the preseason. He didn't look good week 1. Now I've heard it said a lot that this new offensive scheme by Ben McAdoo, it's going to take him. I mean, one of the coaches in the NFL said it's going to take him a whole year to grasp it. But Eli has completed better than 70% of his throws in each of his last 2 games. He lit up Washington last week for 300 passing yards and 4 TD passes, along with a TD run. Now he's on a 3-week tour of some of the shakiest pass defenses in the league. He's got the Falcons, the Eagles, and the Cowboys. So, man, this looks like it could be really, really good. If you don't feel confident in your quarterback or you got bye week issues, Eli Manning could be somebody that could lead you on a 3-week tear of decent points from your quarterback position. And he's only owned in 47% of Yahoo leagues. Rob?
Yeah, man, he's looks like Bart Starr out there. It's it's shocking to see. It's just, again, I think you nailed it. Getting this offense, they're clearly understanding this offense that was new to them this year when McAdoo came in. He's getting rid of the ball in like less than 2 seconds on average, which I think is second fastest in the NFL, maybe just second to his brother Peyton in Denver. And when you've got a guy like Larry Donnell, a.k.a. the self-proclaimed Black Unicorn, looking like Jimmy Graham out there, it helps. And his wide receivers are getting it done with, after the catch. So his schedule is fantastic. So if you're hurting, he's definitely a guy worth some of your waiver wire budget moving forward. We're going to move on to another quarterback, Jay's favorite quarterback, one Mr. Joe Flacco. I tell you, with Steve Smith Sr., he's literally bringing a much-needed punch to this Baltimore offense, because he just assumed punch you in the face is look at you. Flacco's currently on pace for over 4,200 yards and 28 touchdowns if he keeps going the way he is. He just crushed, was supposed to be a good Panthers defense here for 327 passing yards and 3 touchdowns last week, 2 of those to Mr. Steve Smith Sr. After this week, he's got the Colts. It's not a great matchup, but he's got the Bucs and the Falcons after that. So, again, if it's somebody, if you're in a situation you need a QB, there might be worse options out there than Mr. Elite Joe Flacco.
Like we've said in the past, you can't spell elite without Joe Flacco. The truth. So, moving on. Teddy Bridgewater, making his NFL debut this week in Minneapolis. He completed 19 of 30 passes for 317 yards. No touchdowns or interceptions. The Vikings won this one 48-128 over the Falcons. He ran 5 times for 27 yards and a touchdown. He did, tweak his ankle in this one? Sprained his ankle, I believe. So it's a short turnaround this week. They got the Thursday night game in Green Bay. A sprained ankle could probably keep him from playing in this one. Still, aside from the Lions, he doesn't have really any difficult matchups over the next 5 weeks. So he might be somebody you can look at, two quarterback leagues, or, again, if you need help at quarterback position, feeling kind of shaky there. Teddy Bridgewater, as long as he comes back from this ankle thing after this week, could look pretty good for you, especially considering the fact that he's a threat to run the ball in.
Yeah, he is. I'm pretty high on Teddy moving forward here. So, again, this week might be sketchy because he may not play, clearly. And if he does, he'll probably be gimpy. So, might want to stay away from him this week, but look at him moving forward here. The next quarterback we want to touch on real quick is Mike Glennon. Again, he looked really good towards the latter part of last year. Thought he was going to get this job out of the gate, did not, but due to injury, he's taken it back over. He had 302 yards, 2 scores, and the Bucs come from behind road victory over the Steelers this week. This is probably good for Vincent Jackson, not only because he locked onto him a lot last year, but because Mike Evans went down with injury. So for all you frustrated Vincent Jackson owners out there, well, first of all, you knew what you were getting into when you drafted him, because that's what Vincent Jackson is. But it's looking up for you because Mike Glennon seems to share his Christmas dinners and Easter mornings with Vincent Jackson. So again, he's a guy, he's not our first choice here, of course, but he's probably going to be locking onto this job moving forward. So just someone to look at, especially in 2 quarterback leagues or flex position leagues where you can start a quarterback. Take a look at Mike Glennon.
Yeah, another guy to take a look at, and we've mentioned him before, Blake Bortles. This week he was 29 of 37, 253, and a touchdown, 2 picks, ran 5 times for 24 yards. What is attractive about him is the potential for garbage time stats and the fact that he runs the ball a little bit. Less attractive is his schedule. He doesn't really have a good matchup until he faces the Cowboys in Week 10, which is 5 weeks away. So it's actually 6 weeks away because we haven't played Week 5 yet. So, yeah, that's tough to pick up a guy, a rookie that doesn't have a good schedule going forward because, obviously he's prone to throwing interceptions. He's thrown 2 in his first couple games here, and 2 in each game, I believe, actually. So be careful with Blake Bortles. If you need help and you're desperate, maybe take him. As I said, garbage time points, but be careful because he's going to throw some picks. Rob?
Yeah, I tell you, Jay, I might be off on a crazy island on this one, but I see quite a few similarities here between Blake Bortles and Andrew Luck when Luck came out. I think they're very similar. They're both athletic. They can both run the ball when they need to. Both have strong arms. Both smart guys. Bortles just happens to be starting his career in a worse offense than Luck started in. But I think with given some time, I think Blake Bortles can turn into something special. So if you have him looking at him in a dynasty league, keeper leagues and so forth, definitely keep the antennas up there for Blake Bortles. So we're going to move on from quarterbacks here, and we're going to go to running backs, and we're going to look at the Ravens' backfield here. It's really been a cluster. The big waiver wire pickup last week was a guy I like to say his name quite frequently, Lorenzo Taliaferro. You still got Justin Forsett here. You still have Pierce there. It's a real cluster on knowing which guy to start, which guy to bench and so forth. It's kind of a situation probably just to stay away from. But after missing week 4, of course, Bernard Pierce was active, but he didn't log a single carry last week. The Ravens, of course, they said they were holding him out as a precaution. That might be coach speak for he sucks and we want to try to get someone else in there. It's hard to say. But Forsett was handed the majority of the carries in Sunday's game. Taliaferro took over late, just trying to protect that big league over Carolina. Forsett ended up getting 14 carries for 66 yards and a score, caught 3 balls for 31 yards. Taliaferro, 15 carries for 58 yards and a score. So both of those guys did well for you if you needed to play one in your flex position or maybe RB2 because last week was so brutal from a bye week perspective. They came through, but this is just a really tough situation to know what to do with moving forward. So probably just ought to stay away from it for the time being.
All right. Moving on to the Saints. Running back Kerry Robinson. He appears to have taken over the main job in the Saints backfield committee while Ingram is out with a broken hand. While he's been out, the last 2 weeks, Robinson has carried 26 times for 156 yards, while Pierre Thomas has sadly only logged 10 carries. Ingram's going to be out for at least 1 more week, and Robinson is still going to have a significant role upon his return. They do have a bye coming up after this week, so definitely a guy you can look at, although I don't know how much of a role he's going to have after Mark Ingram comes back, as long as Mark Ingram continues to do what Mark Ingram was doing before he went out, which is run the fuck out of the football. But as of right now, yeah, if you need a running back to plug in, Kerry Robinson is not a bad choice, especially going up against the Bucs here this week.
Yeah, for sure. We spent some time on this next guy, Vikings running back Jerick McKinnon. This is, of course, a rookie. He got a heavy dose of carries this past week. He pretty much split them, like we mentioned before, with the ass man, Asiata, had 18 carries for 135 yards, had like a 50-yard scamper as well. He had a touchdown called back on this one, too. He really would have blown this out of the water. But he did his owners well if you needed, again, to play him in a flex position or something this past week. The coaching staff and stuff are saying, look, this guy's, he's more of a change of pace back. He's not, he is a rookie. No one expects a rookie to go in there and be a 3-down back and having to learn pass protection and so forth. But he's working his way into this role. He's getting more and more carries every week. He's definitely, the shiftier running back of the two. Asiata is still getting it done. He's still going to be the goal line back essentially moving forward. But McKinnon can end up outproducing Asiata moving forward in the next couple 2-3 weeks if things continue the way they do. So, and moving forward here, he does have the Packers coming up. That's a pretty good matchup here. Then it goes to the Lions and the Bills, which are not so great. But again, I'd rather be starting McKinnon against the Lions and the Bills as a change of pace back guy catching the ball out of the backfield more than I would probably Asiata at this point.
McKinnon just not moving fast enough for most fantasy owners, I think, into that role that we were hoping he'd be in. Moving on, Browns running back Isaiah Crowell. Now this is a guy who only if you're desperate would I grab him, because Ben Tate is going to be back possibly this week. After all but missing, a little bit of the season with a sprained knee. It seems safe to assume that Tate's going to have a chance to regain his starting role in the Browns' backfield. So, Crowell, like I said, desperate, go ahead and grab him if he's available. But Tate's going to be back, so don't expect to get too much for too long out of this guy. Rob?
Yeah, it's hard to say on this backfield. Again, Terrence West, everything I'm reading and what I've seen on just the eye test is that Crowell probably will have the bigger role when Tate gets back over West. That's the predominant opinion. But again, until we see it firsthand, it's kind of hard to decide what to do with these guys right now. So, all right, so we're going to move on to a guy that we've mentioned the last few weeks now. We need to keep harping on this, especially for you Arian Foster owners, and that, of course, is you're my boy Blue, Alfred Blue. Arian Foster was back in Houston's lineup on Sunday, after missing week 3 with a hamstring injury. But, the Texans were clearly managing this guy's snap count during this game. He did do well out of the backfield catching the ball, but didn't do much running the ball. That left a lot of room for Blue to show what Blue can do, and he contributed.
What can
Bills,
Blue do for you?
Yeah, the Bills are no joke from a rushing defense perspective. So anytime you're playing the Bills with a running back, just FYI on that. But Foster just rushed the ball 8 times for 6 yards. Blue didn't do that much better. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's worse from a mathematical perspective, carrying it 9 times for 9 yards. So neither one of them did good, but he's the clear-cut handcuff for Foster and a much-needed one for Foster, especially if you're a Foster owner moving forward. So go out there and get yourself some Blue.
Yes, good old Alfred. Tell you what. All right, Giants running back Andre Williams. Look, Giants are starting to roll a little bit here. They're starting to get in a rhythm. They're starting to learn this new offensive scheme. Williams got his first real heavy workload this week, rushing 15 times for 66 yards, and his first NFL touchdown. Obviously, Rashad Jennings is still the man here, but Williams is good enough to play a useful sporting role. You might get a touchdown out of this guy, maybe once in a while. Another desperation play here. If you're in a deep league and there's not much on the waiver wire, you might go ahead and grab Andre Williams. But it's really honestly looking like Rashad Jennings is the man in New York going forward.
Yeah, he's clearly the man. The reason he had so few carries in this game was because he was such the man the week before. He had like 30-something odd touches. And considering it was a blowout game, they were just resting their workhorse in this one. So what is nice about Williams, though, again, Williams is the clear-cut handcuff to Jennings. It's not even close. So if you're a Jennings owner, you might want to think about picking up Andre here if you have some room on your bench moving forward. And their outlook moving forward here, game perspective-wise, they have the Falcons, Eagles, and Cowboys. All of those are pretty poor against the run. So you're feeling pretty good now, right about now, if you've got Rashad Jennings. Not that you haven't been feeling good the first 4 prior weeks. So we're going to move on to Chargers running back because they're going out one after another here, and that's Brandon Oliver. He got his first meaningful action of the season this past week. He carried the ball 9 times for 23 yards. Of course, this was a blowout win over the lowly Jags. He also caught 4 passes for 33 yards. Donald Brown is looking bad. He was a huge waiver wire pickup. People just blew their wad on this guy with all their waiver money coming off a a 32-touch week the week prior with a great matchup against the Jags. Thought he was going to crush it, and he sucked.
Wah, wah, wah.
2 yards per carry. Ryan Matthews, of course, is still out. Danny Woodhead is really out. So they are going to the bottom of the barrel here, folks, with their running backs. I think Jay's got a tryout open next week here for the Chargers. See what he can do there.
Get hurt.
Yeah. So, again, this is Oliver's a guy for deeper leagues or leagues with big benches, kind of a stash and pray sort of deal. I just want to make you aware of him here moving forward.
Yeah, another guy that is he's picked up in most leagues at this point, I would guess. But if he's not, Bobby Rainey. Doug Martin returned from a sprained knee in Week 4, and that relegated Rainey to 4 carries and strict backup duty in the Bucs' upset victory in Pittsburgh. Martin wasn't exactly effective here. 14 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown. Caught a couple of passes for 16 yards. And Rainey didn't make a strong case either. He only gained 2 yards on 4 handoffs. Caught 1 pass. So, the thing is here is Doug Martin, there's no guarantee that Doug Martin's going to stick around health-wise. So if you already have Bobby Rainey, maybe hold on to him. I don't know if I'd run out and pick him up by any means. But if you have him, I might hold on to him for a little while longer, just because of the fact that Doug Martin, A, seems to be somewhat injury-prone, and B, isn't really that good when he's in the game. So, and they are coming up against the Saints this week, so they're not really a great defense. So you might see some points out of these guys. Rob?
Yeah, saying they're not a great defense is underestimating
trying to be nice, dude.
How truly bad they really are.
Trying to be nice.
All right, so we're going to move on from the running backs, go over to the wide receivers, and the guy we've been talking about for weeks now, again, is the Rams. Yes, I said the Rams. The Rams have a fantasy-relevant player, people, and his name is Brian Quick, and he's coming off a bye week, so chances are he's on your waiver wire. You need to pick this guy up, especially in PPR leagues, and you might ask why, and I would tell you that's because Quick has been targeted twice as many times, that'd be 22 times, as the Rams' next most popular target, Kenny Britt.
Go to hell, Kenny Britt.
We hate you, Kenny Britt.
You're
Quick
dead to
has
us.
produced 6, again, he's just coming off a bye week, so only 3 games of action here so far. Quick has produced 16 receptions for 235 yards and a score so far. Again, he's got an appealing, I say, with bold and underline with the Eagles on the docket this week, followed up by the 49ers and the Seahawks. So you want to get him, you want to play him now, folks, because the 49ers and Seahawks, pretty decent against the pass, but the Eagles clearly or not. So pick yourself up some Brian Quick.
And be quick about it. All
right.
right.
Oh, that was a layup.
Yeah, I know, dude. You handed it to me. I couldn't. You know me. I'm all about the cheesy shit. Sorry, folks. You'll have to deal with it. All right. Moving on. Bengals wide receiver Marvin Jones. He's expected to return from a broken foot this week and is a dangerous scoring threat. He scored 10 touchdowns last season, 9 of them coming in the red zone. It's possible that the Bengals start him off with a limited number of snaps, but this is a good time to get him before the price goes up. You might be able to be sneaky, and just grab him for the cheap on the waiver wire. He's got the Patriots, the Panthers, and the Colts coming up. Patriots defense is actually looking okay. I don't know about their pass defense, but their run defense is pretty decent. Panthers have been disappointing defense-wise, so that might be a pretty decent matchup. Then the Colts, they've been looking pretty stout lately. So anyway, that's it. Rob?
Yeah, I mean, Revis, of course, is back there, but he would clearly be on A.J. Green. Although, it'd be a really sketchy play to play Marvin Jones his first game back, assuming he even plays. This is more of a pickup, and maybe look to play him in a couple weeks against the Panthers would be my suggestion there. So let's look at a couple Browns wide receivers, Andrew Hawkins and Miles Austin. Andrew Hawkins, they call him Baby Hawk. He's been targeted 10 times in each of the Browns' first 3 games. Of course, they're coming off a bye week here, so they should all be nice and healthy. And he's had no fewer than 6 catches and 70 yards in any of those first 3 games. That's pretty good, people. That's pretty good, especially in PPR leagues. He's on pace to exceed 100 catches, 1,200 yards, although has the same allergy as Andre Johnson, and he's still looking for his first touchdown of the year. Miles Austin, again, has been surpassed from a hamstring injury by Cecil Shorts III. His big playability isn't what it used to be. He's only getting 8 yards per carry, but he's still pretty useful here. He had 6 catches and a touchdown in each of his last 2 games, with over 16 targets during that span. So these guys, Hawkins is the number 1 guy, Miles be the number 2 guy, and Miles is kind of more of a wide receiver 4 or 5 for your teams if you're desperate.
Yeah, desperate. Now, we talk about this guy every week, and I'm highly doubting he's on a lot of waiver wires, but if he is, grab Greg Jennings, although you might not want to play him this week because Teddy Bridgewater might be out with an ankle injury, and as we said earlier, that puts us in Christian Ponder land. Yeesh. And now listen, it's hard to explain. Jarius Wright was targeted 10 times in Bridgewater's debut as starting quarterback for the Vikings, and Jennings and Cordell Patterson were only targeted 4 times each.
Weird.
Yeah, it's very weird. That being said, Jennings still managed to catch 3 balls for 72 yards. But like I said, the ankle injury to Bridgewater might put playing Jennings on hold until he comes back. Don't trust Christian Ponder here, folks, especially 2 divisional matchups coming up, Packers and the Lions. Is the Packers defense great? No. But it's a divisional matchup, so it's going to be a hard-fought game regardless of how good or bad either team's defense is. That's just the way it is in the NFL. So more of a warning than anything else here, I guess, really. Be careful with Greg Jennings going forward until Teddy Bridgewater is back. And even then, if he continues to throw the ball to Jarius Wright the way he is, you might want to grab him and discard Jennings. Rob?
Well, Jay, you really nailed it last week when you were talking about these interdivisional games. When the Lions played the Packers, we all thought that was going to be a huge scoring game, great for fantasy, and it was a far cry from that. So listeners, pay attention to his words of advice here in these interdivisional games with the Vikings here playing the Packers. All right, so we're going to move on to the Cardinals. John Brown, wide receiver there. He's coming off a bye week. He's very dynamic here, this rookie. He has only 9 receptions so far, but 3 of them have gone for touchdowns. Bruce Arians loves the vertical passing game. We all know that. And the Cardinals definitely have some attractive, passing game matchups over the next 6 weeks here. So Brown definitely has some weekly flex appeal, especially in deeper leagues if you need him, or in 3 wide receiver leagues. Looking at the schedule, Broncos, Redskins, Raiders, those are the next 3. Now Carson Palmer is kind of the red flag here. I would not say he's on pace to play this week. He's still having a case of the old man nerve shoulder issues. So we'll see. But Brown's been getting it done regardless of who's been back there thus far.
Yeah. Carson Palmer, hurry back, please. We need you. Michael Floyd needs you, which means I need you. All right, moving on. Eagles wide receiver Jordan Matthews. Now, look, this guy caught a pair of touchdown passes in Week 3. This past week here, Week 4, 4 of 28, no touchdowns in San Francisco. He was still targeted 7 times on a day when Philadelphia offense just looked god-awful. Macklin is still averaging 12 targets per game, and honestly, that's not sustainable for Jeremy Macklin. So, excuse me. If Jordan Matthews is still available on your waiver wire, you should probably go ahead and try and grab him, because Macklin is injury-prone, 12 targets a game. He's going to get hit coming across the middle eventually, and he's going to go down, and that's going to push Matthews into more of a role in this offense that can be very prolific and put up a lot of points for fantasy.
Yeah, we're going to finish the wide receivers here with what's been a very dynamic passing offense. And that would be the San Diego Chargers. Eddie Royal has been killing it, him and his cohort, Michael Floyd. Eddie Royal, you just think he's going to flash in the pan. We've seen this before in previous years, and he just ends up, falling off the planet Earth. However, he's had 2 touchdowns in the last 2 games. 16 catches for 216 yards over the last 3 games. Floyd has made the most clearly of his limited targets of the season. He's had 14 targets, but that's given him 187 yards on 9 catches and 2 touchdowns. So that works out to like over 13 yards per target. They've got a very favorable passing game here moving forward over the next couple weeks. They've got the Jets, who are horrible across the board, frankly, but not so much on the rush defense, but passing defense, they're just horrific. And the Raiders are just as bad or worse. So if Eddie Royal's on your waiver wire, Malcolm Floyd's on your waiver wire, and you need him, or even if you don't, you should probably drop someone and pick up Eddie Royal at least for sure.
Abso-freaking-lutely. I picked up Phillip Rivers, and I'm glad I did. So we're going to move on here to tight ends. And we're going to talk again this week about the Colt tight ends, Dwayne Allen and Coby Fleener. Allen caught his 3rd touchdown catch of the season, and Fleener had his 2nd in Sunday's stomping of the Titans. Now, this is the interesting part of these guys to me, is either one of these guys is relevant right now. Fleener had 19 targets, Allen had 15. And Allen caught 11 of those, and Fleener caught 10. For 145 yards and 109 yards respectively. Look, both of these guys are getting the ball thrown to them by a really good quarterback a lot. So, while you might get, a fluctuation here and there as to which one of them is going to score more points, sometimes one might get a touchdown, one won't. Tough to figure out, which week to play them, but at the same time, if you're looking for some tight end depth or you need a tight end to plug in on your bye week, one of these guys would be just fine. They got the Ravens, the Texans, and the Bengals coming up. Texans game definitely somewhere where I would play either one of these guys if I had them sitting on my bench. Rob?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dwayne Allen is the preferred guy here, but they can both, get it done for you if you need to. So we're going to move on to mention the Ravens here. Of course, we all know Dennis Pitta went out with old man hip injury, dislocated the hip for the 2nd straight year, same hip. So he's likely done, or he's done for the season for sure, maybe his career.
Yeah, he's going to have to Walker pretty soon, I think.
Yeah, unfortunately for him. So Owen Daniels, he came over to this offense to kind of back up Pitta here. He clearly knows this offense from his years over in Houston. But on his first full game in there as the starter, he caught 4 of his 6 targets for 43 yards. And in fact, one of the Steve Smith senior catches that he ended up getting was the deflection off the hands of Owen Daniels. That's not exactly a raving endorsement. Went off his hands, deflected to Stevie. Stevie took it to the house and punched some guy in the end zone, I'm sure. Anyway, Daniels has a solid matchup versus the Colts this week. They're not so good against the tight ends. Follows that up against the Buccaneers and Falcons, who, well, they're not good against anyone. So if you got Owen Daniels, start him with a sense of pride.
Yeah, that's a heck of a pickup if somebody grabbed Owen Daniels right at, with Pitta going out the way he did. And all right, moving on. Buccaneers tight end, and I'm gonna hope I don't slaughter this here. Austin Safarian Jenkins. Am I saying that correctly there, Rob?
Safarian, indeed.
Safarian, kind of like Rastafarian. Nice. Anyway, look. Despite missing weeks 2 and 3 with an ankle injury and only practicing on a limited basis last week, Safarian Jenkins played all 71 of the Buccaneers' offensive snaps Sunday and had 44 yards on 7 targets. Somebody did not put how many catches he had. So he had some catches for 44 yards on 7 targets. The 6'5" rookie might play All right. This guy, 6'5" rookie, he might play a bigger role in the passing game over the next 2-3 weeks with Evans out with a groin injury. He's going to be recovering from hurting his groin. So Safarian Jenkins might be somebody you might want to grab and put on your bench and maybe even play him, especially considering the fact that they're playing the Saints this week. Rob?
Yeah, growing injuries, that's disgusting. Like, the sports hernia surgeries, I don't really know what that entails, except that it's down in your man region. And it just doesn't sound good, man. It just does not sound good. All right. Wow. So we're going to move on to the Rams tight end, Jared Cook. Man, this guy's frustrating. He was a big guy to draft last season. Came out the first.
You were so high on him.
I was, and after week 1, I thought I was the man. He came out with like 3 touchdowns and 900 yards, and then he just fell off the face of the earth. Anyway, that aside, Cook, he's actually showing some consistency, and that's always been the issue with Jared Cook. He's getting tons of targets. He's had 21 of those targets through the first 3 games. They were just coming off their bye week. He's turned those 21 targets into 15 catches for 177 yards. So he's doing good. He hasn't gotten the end zone yet, but he's pretty high efficiency rate there on catching the ball. I will caution the audience here, however, his next 6 opponents are one of the some of the 10 stingiest ones as far as against the opposing tight ends on a team that we have in the NFL. So be a little cautious here. Lower your expectations a little bit. But he's got the Eagles, 49ers, and Seahawks for the next 3 games. But those little trends are meant to be broken. He could always sneak in one in the end zone or something. But he's just a guy kind of towards the bottom of the list here for tight end pickups if you're desperate.
Yeah, I think you're just a little bitter. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Just a little bitter. So, we'll move on here to the man, the myth, the legend. Not really. But the rookie, Eric Ebron from the Detroit Lions. Look, Joseph Foria has sidelined with an ankle injury, reportedly from chasing his little dog.
Dude, that is so pathetic.
Dude.
They should cut him right now.
You shut your damn mouth.
A, he's got a little dog, for one. I hate little tiny dogs. And B, he's an athletic NFL tight end, and he tweaks his knee or ankle or whatever it was by chasing his little dog around his house. I mean, come on. It's embarrassing.
Yes, it is embarrassing. So, anyway, moving on back to Ebron. The Lions' first-round pick, by the way, this year. He played more than 50% of the snaps for the first time this season, which resulted in 3 catches for 34 yards and a touchdown against the Jets. He should continue to be useful as a desperation start with both Foria and Calvin Johnson nursing injuries. They both have some ankle issues. They are coming up against the Bills this week, which the Lions should kick the living shit out of Buffalo. Then the Vikings, which, again, divisional matchups, especially in the NFC North, can be brutal. Then the Saints. So, hey, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Rob?
Yeah, it was got his first TD of the season, of his rookie career, as you mentioned. Hope he kept that game ball. Yeah, and Joseph, I don't know. I just hope his dog isn't wearing a pink dress or carrying a little purse around. All right, well, that is it for this week. On the next show, we will be discussing the Week 6 waiver wire grabs, along with helping you decide who to start and who to sit. In the meantime, go to redzonewarriors.com, where you can watch previous episodes, see our rankings on our new and fabulous website, and prescribe to and rate the show via iTunes. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter and tweet us each and every one of your fantasy football questions at Red Zone Warriors. So, for the Cushman, I am Rob the Commish Smith, and we will catch you next time.